Hi, what's up, everyone? I'm here today to talk a little bit about what was the news yesterday. But before I go into that, a good evening to all of you and to welcome all the new members that have joined the group. Do also take advantage of this group because right now inflation is high. I have bankers in this group. You can ask them questions from UOB and OCBC. Law firms are also inside, right? So like Ted from Cross Borders, you can reach out to them, and even for contractors for your ID firms if you want to have some quotes. All right. So I think I will do up a type of form or sheet so you can have easier reference. So I think all of us are a little bit shocked and when what happened yesterday. I'll just go through some of the pointers so at least you're more or less quite aware what's happening. Okay, so in a nutshell, this came out last night. So there are some of the cooling measures, right? Takes effect today. Again, this is a disclaimer to all of you. There is so much accuracy information you can get from this. And to be honest, as of right now, I do at the end of this session, there are some Q&As and some questions that we have gotten some answers from HDB from the team. But then again, it seems that HDB, some of the answers are not the same, right? So I think this is of the best of my knowledge. So if you have any very specific questions, you might want to call them or write them a feedback to get something more accurate on the black and white. All right, so here we go. Right, I actually put in this box of thunder because these are some of the changes, right? There's an increase in the Tdsr for the interest rate floor. And I think all of us, I prepared all of you that this is going to happen really soon, right? So this is a change. Basically, as you know, there are two types of loans you can get. One is your residential property loan, and the other one will be a non-residential, which then pertains to your commercial and industrial properties, in the past, it has always been using the interest rate for your eligibility based on 3.5%, right? And 4.5% for commercial and industrial properties. As of today, it will then change by a 0.5 percentage point here from 3.5 to 4% and 4.5 to 5%, all right? Honestly, I thought it would be slightly higher. I'll give you more of my thoughts later at the end. And how this affects you. So I worked out the difference for you to just take a look and you realize this is for those of you with incomes in the brackets of 10,000, right? Because of 5,000 from 10, 15, 20 to 25. And if you are eligible for a 30-year loan, in the past, you could have gotten 1.224 million for $10,000 income. All right. At present, with the new interest rate of a 0.5%, it kind of dropped by $72,000. All right. And if you are in the income bracket of $15,000, in the past, you have taken on 1.837 million that was eligible for you. And now it has been lowered by $109,000. Yep. And for 20K, it has dropped by 145,000. And for 25,000 income, it has dropped by $182,000. All right. And if you are of older age with a shorter tenure, in the past, this is based on 20 years loan. That would be equivalent to you being 45 this year. So in the past, you could have gotten $948,000, but now you get $40,000 lesser. All right. And 15K bracket 1.422, and now will drop to 1.361, and 20K a difference of 81, and 25K difference of $101,000. All right. So this is basically, in essence, the Tdsr. So what they're doing basically is that they're trying their best to manage our debt per household and make sure that we do not go into a dumping of properties. So it's more affordable. Okay. Another announcement that was made was for the Hdb Hre. So this is more towards our HDB friends, and those of you who have managed to get your hands on a loan from HDB, which is called HLE, right? In the past, when you apply for your HLE, they use 2.6%, right, to assess your loan in terms of the risk level. But right now, they've increased that by 3%, to 3%. So in essence, what this means is that in the past, so for HDB loans, the maximum loan you're able to get is only 25 years. So for $8,000 income, you will see that from the past and present, really not much of a difference. It's about $23,000 difference. All right. And for 10K income, it has also dropped to 29K, 37K, and 40K. Now, the main difference between the Tdsr is because they take 55%, and that hasn't changed as of now. And for HDB, HRE has always been basing on 30%. So even for the private sector, right? Private sector means that if you buy a HDB taking on a bank loan, right? This is also based on an MSR of 30%. Now, LTV is basically this is the loan that HDB has granted for household. In the past, quite a while back, you could have borrowed up to 90%. And if you can remember, it was last December, they dropped it to 85%. And now they have lowered it to 80%. What this means in essence is that if you are taking an HDB loan, right, in the past, you could borrow up to 90% of its value. But today, you have to have a down payment of 20% at least, not including the stamp duties. All right. Now, this is the one with two thunderbolts because it's really quite unexpected. I didn't expect this, and I think a lot of us didn't expect this. This is a 15 months wait out period. Now, what does this mean? Right. It means that if you were to sell your private property, irregardless any residential private properties, I do not think it is has any relation to commercial at this point in time. But as long as you have disposed of your private residential property, you are not allowed to purchase any HDB resale properties for the next 15 months, right? So in the past, if you wanted to apply for a subsidized flat, if you're looking to buy a BTO flat, if you're within the eligibility, if you have sold out your private property, there is a 30 months wait where you cannot own any properties before you're eligible to apply for a BTO or for an EC for the matter, right? But now, this is in relation to the resale market, right? So resale market, which is a secondary market, even if you have disposed of your current property, you cannot immediately get HDB property. You have to wait for 15 months. But there is an exemption. Yep. The exemption are for people who are age 55 and above, buying HDB 4-room and smaller. All right. So I reread this statement a couple of times, and I kind of can confirm it. It really means 4-room and smaller, right? Meaning to say that if you are downgrading from a condominium and you're looking to buy a nice, spacious 5-room flat, right? You don't qualify. At age 55, right? You don't qualify. You have to wait for 15 months. You can only buy 4-room and smaller, right? So this is an example. So this example I give you right now is basically from the team that they have caught into HDB, and they collated some of the questions and some of the case studies, and I'm sharing with all of you, so at least you kind of know how it plays out on the ground. Buyer gotten HRE approved, right? You have HRE in hand already. They have exercised the option to purchase. So this is for HDB, yeah, but they have not submit for resale application yet. So this would mean that I have viewed the place, I have placed an option of $1,000, and I've exercised it with the next $4,000, but it's still sitting in my hands. I have not submitted to HDB yet. All right, what happens then? But the question over here, the answers given to us was that your loan to value will be affected, right? Instead of in the past where you're eligible for 85% loan, it'll be then pushed down to 5%, right? Where you have to have a down payment of 20%. And the loan amount would, of course, then adjust accordingly, yeah? The next is, so if there is anything you're upset about, if you are in the midst of some unfortunate circumstance where you have sold your property, you have not bought a property, or you're within the 3 weeks cooling period whereby you are not in the midst of applying for the HRE, you've already sold your property, right? So there's a lot of cases that I think is going to bounce off the HDB, right? The way to reach them is to go to the feedback form, all right? They kind of stopped online calls already, right? The last I had, even it was deputy case, administrator case, they referred me directly to the feedback form. So where you can get this is going to the main site of HDB website. Go right to the bottom right-hand corner, right? You will see this feedback, click on it, and you can choose the relevant categories and they'll respond back to you. All right, so the next example, buyers have disposed their private property less than 15 months. The OTP has been granted, right? The buyers have exercised, but they have not submitted to Hdb resale application yet, right? So even though you have already exercised, but if you have not submitted yet, again, the resale application will not go through, all right? And use the e-feedback to appeal. Next is, okay, buyers have disposed their private property less than 15 months. OTP has been granted, right? Buyers have exercised, and the sellers have submitted to the Hdb resale application, but the buyers have not. So this would mean that the property you bought from the sellers has already done their due, they have submitted everything, and they're waiting for your side. So there's normally a 7 days grace where in between you have to submit your application. Right now, you have not submitted yet. What will happen, right? Same thing will happen. The resale application for the buyer will not go through, all right? And the buyer has to use the e-feedback to appeal, yeah, and the sellers then have to wait for the outcome of the appeal. So if any of you are actually in this particular situation now, I would then ask you to quickly do it, because I'm not so sure after the 7 days, is there going to be any, would they just throw the case out or you have to resubmit again, all right? All right, there's some other FAQs. So for those of you who are downgrading, who are above 55, do both applicants need to be age 55 to be exempted? I should think the answer is yes, right? And then someone was asking, can they get their younger spouse to be the occupier instead and buy under one ownership, right? So logically, I think it's possible because you're the owner, right? But because you can see the whole cooling measure is really to soften up the Hdb market, right? So they might be a bit stricter in that aspect, but don't quote me. I'm really not so sure about this part, right? I think you write into Hdb to get a clearer answer before you sell your place and try and try to do this. Yeah. So okay, I have sold my private property and have not purchased my Hdb yet. How? I think if you have a good story, write in under the e-feedback. If not, then you got to look for an alternative, unfortunately, right? Either you got to buy another private property, right? If not, you have to wait out for the 15 months before buying another Hdb property, yeah? Okay, so what about the rest of you? I've granted option for my private property. Can I choose not to sell, right? So at times after you have sold your property to your buyer, but they have not exercised, and therefore you didn't purchase your Hdb property, right? You're downgrading, isn't it? And now with this situation, obviously, it's very clear that you're not eligible to get an Hdb. What can you do about it now? Do understand that the cooling measures and the law of contract is two different things, right? So in the law of contract, you have already sold your property to your buyer. The buyer has a right to exercise the option, and you cannot choose not to sell, right? I mean, you can choose not to sell, but then again, I think you have to refer back to your lawyers to get a better legal advice, all right? Okay, next, when is a 15 months calculated from? My educated guess would be, they have not said this, but I should think it's based on completion. It cannot be the option date or the exercise date, all right? It is from the date where the property has been concluded, which is completion. Okay, so next one is, I sold my Hdb to my buyer who is affected. So this means that you're the seller, and you know there is there's an appeal process that the buyer could have taken, right? But he chooses not to appeal and he wants to abort the whole case, and he's asking for his deposit back, all right? And the seller is asking, can I forfeit the 5K deposit? Okay, so if you were to look through the Hdb OTB, the Hdb option to purchase, there is a particular clause, if I'm not wrong, clause 10, I can't remember, right? Where it is very clear that Hdb, if there's anything that that falls under HDB that rejecting the whole case, the whole case is voided and all money has to be returned back to the buyers. Yeah. So at this point in time, I think it is best that you reach out to the buyers directly. If the agent representing them, I think sit down and talk, right? If not, then unfortunately you have to return back a deposit, right? And then remarket your properties again. Yeah. All right. So my thoughts. For the TDSR, like I was saying, this is something that we are all prepared for. Honestly, looking at the numbers that you saw earlier, it will really affect those buyers who are taking on a 30-year loan, right? You can see that the quantum dropped significantly in terms of what they're eligible for. And it didn't really drop that much for people who are actually borrowing on the 20 years, yeah? Obviously, the absolute quantum is very different. Like I said earlier, I'm quite surprised that this is only going for a 0.5. I expected a 1% at least. And anyway, if you look through the news yesterday, it seems that they're also preparing for that. Right now, they increase it by 0.5. And I guess that in the following months till next year, if the Fed continues to increase the rates, all right, this will also change. Yeah. HDB, LTV, and interest rate. Honestly, this one I think will really affect buyers who are borderline cases, who are just nice, right? After getting your grant and your loan and your down payment, it's just nice is this budget, right? And with this introduced, unfortunately, it will mean a higher down payment, which is something that you do not have, and a lower loan, right? And I think, unfortunately, for this group of buyers, you have to look at an alternative, right? You cannot buy a place whereby it's your ideal place near your parents. You might need to go a little bit further away to something a bit more affordable, yeah? All right. Okay, the 15 months wait out. This is going to be quite interesting, right? For the families who are caught off guard, those that I mentioned earlier, those who have sold their properties, and maybe your property, you bought it in the good old days below 1 million, you say 1.5 million, and you're looking to downgrade to HDB, cash out some money, renovate nicely, right? Take on a small loan for the property, and now you realize that, oh no, what are you going to do about it? Now you cannot buy a HDB, then how? I think this group of buyers, or rather of families, if it's really affordability, they will go to resale condominium, perhaps an older one, more affordable one, because their whole objective was to cash out, right? And not be so stressed over loan. I think the main worry I think is if you can appeal for that, especially the whole reason if you would have sold your property to downgrade was because of income drop, right? That's the reason why you want to downgrade. And they are asking you to rent out and wait out for the next 15 months. Like I said, on a case-by-case basis, talk to the HDB officer and appeal on that. You might get it. But nonetheless, as your resale transaction is in progress, I don't know how long is a turnaround time. I believe that department is going to be filled with a lot of appeals, right? You will still be renting nonetheless, yeah? So I think work on the worst case situation. But right now we are in a worst market because can you imagine the number of transactions HDB receives? I do have no idea what percentage is downgrading from private. But if all these people now are going outside to rent in an already hot rental market, because so many projects have been delayed, I would think that the rental market is going to go up, right? Okay, so and because of these measures, I also think that we have already short of inventories in terms of liquidity, right? Or number of units in the market. And some sellers right now who are being put off because of this 15 months wait time are going to pull their properties out of the market. So I think from the short term, we're going to look at a price increase for the resale market, right? Families who appealed, got rejected, they'll be coming back into the resale market again instead of basically two markets, right? They're supposed to go to the HDB market. Now they're being pushed out of the HDB market. They still have to stay somewhere. They're going to buy the private market. right? And therefore, I think in a short term, at least for the next few quarters, the resale condominiums are going to go up in price. Yeah. Okay. And yes, this is going to be the start of the HDB price correction. The bear market should be coming for HDB. I think one of the reasons why they did that was because the $1 million HDB transactions are all made, I am assuming, from downgraders who owns big properties, 4-bedroom condominiums, landed properties. Yeah, they pay all these high prices. And I think they're doing this really to stop the HDB market moving too fast. Yeah, like I said, it's the most basic of all housing in Singapore at the moment. And I think also because of this, at least the next two quarters, 3 rooms and 4 rooms prices might really go up, right? And for all of you who has placed your properties in the market for sale, I think talk to your agents, right? Talk to someone at least on how you could right price your property and how you should be maneuvering in this present situation, which condos you want to go, right? And how to select the right one. Okay, right? So, right, guys, this is what I have for you tonight, right? Let me just see. So, right, yes, this is what I have. All right. Okay, I'm unable to see who's online. I know some of you are online viewing, but I don't know who you are. I can't see it here. Okay, but anyway, that's all I have. And if you have any questions, please feel free, like I said, to ask and post it here, right? And then I will respond as fast as I can. All right. See you.